on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
No, hell no. We are not going anywhere. You knock any of us down, from President Trump, our nominee, and the men we will support for president and into his presidency, to any of us. You knock one down, there are 5 of us ready to stand up and take their place. I learned that, sadly, 14 years ago. How many years ago was it? When Andrew Breitbart fell on the line of duty. And it took many of us to replace him, but we all stood up and did our part. We are not backing down. This country is too important to all of us. Thanks for tuning in here at 8:07 on O'Connor and Company as we continue to cover this important historic moment in the wake of the assassination attempt of Donald Trump. Coming up in 10 minutes, we'll speak with Selena Zito, who was there in the front row when all of this happened, and then had an exclusive interview with the president, the first major interview with President Trump post-assassination attempt. And at 8:35, Congressman Michael Waltz of Florida. I'm Larry O'Connor. That's Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
Who was standing right here shoulder to shoulder with me, refusing to back down. Joining us right now is Rob O'Donnell, retired member of the New York Police Department, who has seen his presidential security details in his time, as well as terror attacks firsthand. And he joins us now to give some level of law enforcement expertise to the questions being asked. Rob, good morning, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Larry. Hey, Julie. How you doing today?
Well, about like everybody, I think. A little shaken, a little knocked off kilter a little bit, but boy, the feet planted firmly on the ground, ready to follow that man who thrust his fist in the air anywhere he wants to lead us. There's so many questions about that rooftop, why it wasn't covered, why anyone was allowed to get on the rooftop, what seemed to be a delay with the sniper, the detail that was surrounding the president, interactions with local police. Take your pick, Rob. What sticks out to you? What do you want answers to?
I want answers to all of it, quite honestly, Larry. But let's start with the advance team. This is the advance team's job to get there days before as this event is setting up, to flag key locations, key strategic locations, key vulnerabilities, to not only say, okay, the Secret Service is going to cover these areas. Here's the best vantage point for some of our assets. We can't cover these areas here, so we need uniform presence, visibly posted at these locations, and draw up that plan to make this a safe environment for not only the protectee, in this point, the former president and most likely next president of the United States, and the people that are attending this rally.
And it should also be pointed out, by the way, you're a radio talk show host right outside of Scranton, Pennsylvania, in central PA. So you're, about 200 miles, 300 miles from Butler?
Yeah, it's about three and a half hours from us here in northeastern Pennsylvania. And, it just came out today that 2 of the other victims that were originally listed in critical condition but are now listed in stable condition are both Marine veterans out there, David Dutch and James Copenhagen, 57 and 74 years old. They're both listed. Thankfully, the governor just posted they were listed in stable condition now, so that's good. But you have 2 Marines that went to support their candidate for the next president of the United States, a fire chief, Corey Camerantori, who was killed shielding his family from the gunfire. I've spoken to Dave McCormick's campaign. I've spoken to individuals, and I know you're going to speak to Selena Zito, who's there. It's just extraordinary people. But one of the biggest things that I saw here is, we could talk about all the tactics in a second, but I've seen seasoned law enforcement officers. I've spoken to military personnel that have just been near gunfire and have PTSD. I've seen law enforcement officers that have been in gunfights and not struck by gunfire, who were utter a mess. The media, the pundits out there want to say Donald Trump's a fake. He's a showman. He's not doing this for real. Listen, I saw a real patriot. Yeah. He was shot by gunfire. He heard the comms from his protective detail who was covering him and shielding him. So he knew he was shot. He knew there was gunfire. I mean, they were saying it over the radio that the shooter's down. He knew this. And as much as I cringe at his visibility in pumping his fist up and not being removed off the X, as we call it, being removed from the target, if you look at the the rhetoric that the media would have rushed with if they would have just carried him off stage with blood on the side of his head after gunfire. For 24 hours, we would have heard rumor after rumor after rumor. His instinct was to stand up and let those people know that I'm okay, I'm not going down, and we're going to fight.
Yeah.
And listen, you can't script that. That was him.
Yeah.
Rob,
That was him who you've talked about, I've talked about, we've all talked about. We've seen this person in him, and now the world just did.
Rob, you're right. That was indeed an iconic moment. But I want to go back to the incident itself. Rally goers saw the shooter on this roof, which was within shooting range of that stage. I'm not a law enforcement official. I don't understand how this was allowed to happen. And this is the other thing. This is the other question I have. These rally goers, there's video of them yelling for quite a while. There's a guy on the roof. There's a guy on the roof. There's a guy on the roof. Why in the world wasn't there an immediate reaction? It seems like there was a delay. I don't understand why. Can you explain how this happened? I mean, I know we're all waiting for that, but
yeah. No, I can. But let me first caveat: this was an utter fail. Someone got multiple shots off, killing a Pennsylvanian, killing an American, wounding 2 others, and striking the president. So this was an utter fail. I'm not defending anything that happened here. But I've been at these events. I've worked dozens of presidential details. I'm certified by the NYPD in dignitary protection. At these events, we literally get dozens, if not hundreds of pedestrians coming up saying, hey, there's a guy with a gun up there. And 10 times out of 10 in the past, it's always been Secret Service. It's been counter-terrorist snipers. It's been law enforcement, because they are all over the place. People just see guys dressed in black with rifles, and they're like, hey, there's a gun up there, because the public's not used to seeing that. So complacency, I think, played a factor here. The other factor is people don't understand that most of these counter-sniper tactical teams, those guys you see up on the roof there, they're contracted out as local law enforcement. The Secret Service does not bring their own to a lot of these events. More times than not, they're local SWAT teams, they're local tactical teams that are taking these positions up. The Butler County District Attorney said that they had 4 of their counter-sniper teams at this event. So how much practice, how much experience does Butler County, Pennsylvania, a very small rural community, have? You also have, there absolutely should have been a uniform presence on that roof. But you're looking at a rural Pennsylvania, rural America, where law enforcement assets are few and far between. They don't have the local assets like, let's say, the NYPD does. A president comes to New York City. We literally have thousands of police officers, one on every overpass, one on every level of a garage that overlooks a point like this. There's just not the assets out there. And a lot of people are under the misconception that Secret Service sends an army to these events. Local law enforcement probably outnumbered Secret Service at this event 20 or 30 to 1. I would be surprised if there was more than 20 Secret Service personnel at this event in totality. And I think, there's probably just a few dozen law enforcement at this type of event. So the other thing with the snipers saying people were pointing them out and saying that there's someone going up on that roof, there's 2 factors there. All these law enforcement entities work on different radio frequencies. Local law enforcement does not work on the same radio frequency as state police. Neither work on the same as Secret Service. TSA does the magnetometers under Secret Service supervision. We've all seen that when we go to these events.
Yeah.
They're not on any frequency. They're just overseen by Secret Service.
So,
you also have the pitch of the roof that the shooter was on.
Yes.
As he came up, he was on the downside of that pitch, so the sniper was not able to see him till he reached the peak of that. And listen, I've been at these events. I've been close proximity to the president as law enforcement working with him. And I've been told directly multiple times by Secret Service, by the president's body details, listen, if something goes down and there's shots fired, you better just hit the ground, because we're taking you out if you're in a uniform or not, because anyone around the president's a threat. So
interesting. That's great. No, you're answering a lot of the questions there. That's very important. And also, I'm shocked that they're all on. I assume, of course, they're all on different frequencies. But when the event begins or during the event, I would think that local law enforcement, if they see something, they can directly communicate with the Secret Service and get on their frequency. Hey, there's somebody over here. But so there was no communication then, is what you're saying?
No, there's usually a central hub where somebody's monitoring multiple radios and they have to relay that. So there is a delay.
Yeah.
Now there's reports coming out now that local law enforcement did try and confront this individual. He was pointed at with a gun. Again, this is unconfirmed reports coming from valid sources at the area. My first instinct was, why didn't that officer, if he couldn't confront him because he's got a high-powered rifle and he was breaching a roof, why not fire a couple of rounds in the air, which again would have made Secret Service come in and remove Trump from the stage.
Right.
But think of the Secret Service, the snipers that are up there. Here's a guy in uniform. He looks like a cop. He may be a cop.
And he starts firing a gun. You're going to take the cop out.
Firing a gun in the air. Yes.
Yep.
There's more here.
That
and
makes
again,
sense.
Listen, there's plenty of fault to go around. This needs to be dissected individually, no holds barred, and everyone held accountable.
You're right, Rob.
If not, we are going to have this again.
Great insights. Thank you. It's why we wanted you this morning. We're out of time, though. Appreciate you joining us, my friend. Thank you, sir.
Rob.
It's 8:17. We got to get straight to Jamie.